Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you are watching this. Welcome back to the 73rd episode of the St Johnstone podcast for all things Heart of Midlothian. Join you, as always, is myself, Ewan Ramsey, and Alan Scrimger. We do hope you are all good and well. Today's topic, there's not a lot to talk about, but at the same time, there's a lot to talk about. Obviously, we are referring to the dismal performance, arguably the worst performance of this season for Hearts when we travelled up to Fir Park against Motherwell, where we lost 2-0, which, obviously didn't sit well with the fans, but of course for my beautiful was co-host, certainly didn't sit right with him, considering his was a connection. Alan literally take the lead on everything, on what happened at the weekend, and yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this week as we head into the World Cup the break as well, for some glorious international football as we do all enjoy. We will go through that, and we do hope you enjoy as well. So as always as well, guys, if you're not subscribed to the Since I Was Young was a podcast via our YouTube page, please think about subscribing. And if you want to get into contact with us via our socials as well, please feel free. They're all in the description and on screen if you wish to do so. Yeah, we would like to start this was it episode by was it giving a wee was it a segment to the passing of the Hibs was the chairman, Ron Gordon, who died at the age of, was it 68? Was it just a couple of was it days ago? So from myself and Alan, we do wish was it sympathy, was it to his was a family, and to Hibs of course as well. Was it I saw the post that you was a popped up, Alan. Like, you're absolutely right. Like, when it comes to things like does she do, was it have to put, was it football, was it to decide, and like, was it like, especially was it when it comes to your, was it chairman as well? Yeah.
Yeah, of course, of course. I mean, it's tragic. It was a couple of months ago. There was a statement that he was having treatment for cancer, and he was back over in America. And yeah, it's a horrible illness that claims far too many lives, to be honest with you. But yeah, as you say, in times like this, football is secondary, and yeah, just echo the thoughts to families and friends and everybody that's kind of come out and said things about him have said, how sort of warm a guy he was and how nice an old guy he was. So it's a shame, and it would be, we had to mention it just obviously for, it's out there. Yeah, just all the best and condolences, etc.
Absolutely, Alan. Absolutely. I mean, was it as you was said as well? Like these things was it had to be put, was it to decide that, like, and was it like you said, that we do hope, was it what was it was it the was it for family, what was it all the best as well during this, was a quite bad time. So yeah, Alan, we can get on to the was it the events that took place at the weekend. 12 o'clock was a kickoff up at Fir Park, Motherwell versus Hearts. Yeah, like, I mean, there's a list here we have to get through in terms of where to start.
Do we have to?
Well, I mean, I mean, we could have gladly sacked this off this week, but, like, we do owe it. Was it was it to the sub, sir? So, like, what I mean.
Aye.
Again, like, I mean, we could start. Was it with the starting, was a lineup. I mean, again, it looked as strong as it could be. Was it like we played throughout this last like was it few weeks as well? Um, yeah. So Alan, just was it if you want to take us through, was it some of the events that was it caught your eye? What went wrong?
Oh, it's mad because like before the game kicked off. I mean, first of all, last episode we seemed to somehow preview it as if it was at Tynecastle, and I've no idea how that happened. But clearly we were just not quite with it last time.
Fucking clearly,
Or I
right?
wasn't. I don't quite know.
Oh no, no, mate. Me all the fucking ways, so it's all good.
But no, I mean, Fir Park is a difficult place for us to go, it seems. And but yeah, when I saw the lineup, I thought it was quite a strong lineup. Obviously, Kai Rolls was out; he was on the bench, and Gino was out, suspended. So those were the sort of only two kind of, I would say big misses, but two kind of regulars that didn't play.
Yeah.
But we had Snodgrass and Devlin in midfield as we've had the last few weeks. We had Michael Smith and Alex Cochrane fullback, or wing backs rather. And we had Shankland, Humphreys, and Barry Mackay in the forward areas, which on paper sounds reasonable.
Absolutely.
Stevie Humphreys has done well recently off the bench, so I didn't begrudge him a start. And it's one of those. But I'll touch on him later, or I'm sure we'll discuss Stevie Humphreys because he was one of a large number of the players that just didn't quite turn up
Oh
for
yes.
whatever reason. But yeah, the biggest concern I had, and that this was the thing that we did touch on last episode, and we did get it right. Motherwell are scrapping for points. They need to get points to pull away from the bottom of the table. They played against St Mirren in midweek and won,
Mm.
and then obviously played against us and won. They seem to have a bit of an identity about them at the moment,
Mm.
which is good for them. That big boy Van Veen and Obika up front, they caused us problems all day. It wasn't pretty football that they were playing either, but it was effective, and we just didn't. I don't know what happened to us. I don't know. I don't know if we just didn't realize it was a 12 o'clock kickoff and thought it kicked off at 3 or something. But yeah, it was like I said, Motherwell deserved it, and I don't obviously enjoy saying that, but they did. They were better than us in virtually every department, and that's a concern.
I mean, just was about while you touched on like the performances like in general, and so like we've talked about in the sense like you know even when you're playing at your absolute was a worst, but you're still was coming away with the actual points as well. We've had that a few times, like throughout this was a season. Um, but I guess what my question is, do you feel as if that's being overlooked a bit too much in the sense that was it still was it coming away with the actual points, or do you think it is something that we do have to look into? And I mean, obviously we're going to talk about was it the Robbie as well, because obviously it wasn't just down to actually him, but he's got to take some was a sort of responsibility as well. So in that sense, do you think we actually have to find that sort of was it standard in to the way we play, even though we was a may get beat and we still was keep that standard, or do you think it's just maybe like for this last sort of few weeks, it's just like we're in sort of that part of the season where the momentum just starts to fade away slightly.
Yeah, I think that's probably it. To be honest, I think, and I've said this many times that at any level, it doesn't matter how you're playing if you're winning, and there's fans that want us to play brilliant football. There's fans that say, we should be capable of blowing away teams like Motherwell, etc., etc. And there's maybe an element of truth to that, but you know, if you're winning, it doesn't really matter how
No.
you win. Like, I mean, even like the Hamilton game, for example, I don't like. Obviously, we controlled it and we basically walked through it and won, but I don't think we were particularly impressive performance wise. It was just a comfortable routine win. It wasn't anything, we didn't blow them away, which, some fans would say that we should be doing. But obviously, cup competition is slightly different. It's just about
Aye.
getting through. But there's been games this season that we've won and maybe not deserved to win, but we've been clinical when we've taken the chances. Even the Dundee United game not that long ago, Stevie Humphrey's halfway line goal put a gloss on what wasn't a very good performance either. So that it's there's an element of kind of like we've been riding our luck a little bit recently in terms of results based off the performances, but I do think there's an element of you can't expect. It sounds like I'm being negative. I'm not really meaning to, but you can't expect too much. Like I know people say, oh, we should be, as I say, blowing teams away, but there's only two teams in the league, arguably only one team in the league, that has the quality to blow teams away, and that's the two sides from Glasgow. Out with them, and again, people might not like to hear this, but out with Celtic and Rangers on any given day, any team can beat anyone, and that's the reality. Um, what it is, and the way that we'll finish third is by putting a consistent run of results together, which is what we've done over the last 10 games or so, since the World Cup break.
Aye.
So it's, I know like people might not like to hear it, but I understand people that say, oh, we should be dominating a 90-minute game. We should be, playing brilliantly for 90 minutes. It's not possible. It's not possible. And, as long as we're winning, that's kind of where I sit. It's like, as long as we get 3 points at the end of the day, yeah, okay, performances could be a bit nicer to watch. They could be a bit more entertaining. But if we're finishing third, that's the target. That's the aim. So, but yeah, I do agree. Performances of the last little while haven't been fantastic. And that result against Motherwell had been coming, to be fair.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's one of those things that you ask different people and they have different opinions of what Hearts should be and where Hearts should be and whether Robbie is the right person to get them to that point or not.
Yeah, but like, in that same sense, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Like, I'll take, was it every 3 points over like an actual dog shit per like per performance any day. But it was something that we highlighted on the actual day of the game as well. And yeah, like I mean, just to clarify, this is not like a Robbie out part three fucking thing. Jesus Christ, honestly. But like it was said that even quite a lot, but like was it as we do every time Hearts win or if Hearts get beat, it's straight onto was it Twitter, and it's something that we've been saying for like a long time, and I don't know if it's a case of that's just how he does things, or if he's just not maybe had the sort of the experience as such to learn that. But like, there's no was a plan B at all from like from from was it Robbie? Like, unfortunately, like there just doesn't seem to be like because once we came in at was it half time, and was it and we started the second half. Less than was it 60 seconds, they then score. So like, where does the consistency come from? Where does the change come from? Instead of like because it almost feels like like genuinely like the game plan feels like right. Was it like was it if we're in front, like we'll throw like another defensive player on, and was it if we're behind, like will just for was it an attacking mind player on? There doesn't actually seem to be a strategy there. So do you think that is actually like was it like a part of his game that he doesn't like relatively know yet, or is it possibly something that we're just are gonna have to get used to as fans?
I think you're right to an extent. I think I sometimes question some changes that Robbie makes in games, and sometimes he gets them right, and
Yeah,
he
yeah,
should
no, no,
get
for sure.
credit and deserved praise for when it works. But when it doesn't, you start going, why has he done that? What? But then the other side of it is the depth of the squad that we have in terms of quality, and obviously, I think one of the biggest um, issues about the Motherwell game was the forward movement and the just lack of it. Um, Humphreys got tackled quite early on, and you could tell he was feeling the effects of it for the majority of the first half. He just didn't really look like he was moving all that well. Shankland was pretty much playing in defensive midfield. He was coming that deep to just get involved. Barry Mackay, yeah, I'm not going to have a Barry Mackay rant again.
Incoming,
Yeah, it's the thing is, and without going over old ground about Barry Mackay, I'll touch on something later on that I spotted during the week. But I think the biggest loss for us in the Motherwell game was Janelli not being there.
Mm.
Um, Gino and Shankland have this understanding, this relationship in terms of Shankland drops deep, Gino occupies the space. Nobody was doing that against Motherwell, and Shankland was dropping deep, and there was nobody moving in front of him. To take up that like number 9 position, which is where Shanklin should be. But despite how good he is at being that,
Yeah.
dropping deep and linking up the play.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it's I'm sure we'll speak about it later in terms of how we change things or how we fix things. But I'll since I mentioned his name, I'll just talk about him for 2 minutes
Yeah, of course.
because that's all I want to do because I've spoken
And
about him
counting.
countless times in previous weeks. Barry Mackay. Now, I like, and this is something that again links back to Robbie as well. Barry is clearly not in good form at the moment. I don't know what's happened. I don't know what's going on there, but it's not great. Um, I saw something, and you maybe saw it. It was Andy Halliday did a thing in the Daily Record where he was speaking about if he was the Hearts manager, Barry Mackay would be the first name on the team sheet every week because of the fact that he's capable of producing match winning moments when you need them, or he's capable of pulling something out of nowhere, which is true. It is true. But for every one good game Barry Mackay has, he has 5 where he doesn't do anything. And that's not a good rate of, good to average. And I think like you spoke about Robbie briefly, and I think for me, and this is again something that I've kind of noticed recently as well, is that like we spoke last week about the youth academy setup and all that, and Robbie Nielsen, I remember he made a comment. I can't remember when it was, but it sticks in my memory, and he said something along the lines of, for the young players, he said playing for Hearts is a privilege, not a right, and I agree with that.
Mm.
I do agree with that. But I think that needs to extend to first team players as well.
Mm.
I think Barry Mackay, for as good as he can be recently, does he deserve to start every week?
I don't
I
think
don't
so.
think so.
No.
Stephen Kingsley, another one that's out of form at the moment. I love Stephen Kingsley, and he was very close to scoring a free kick,
I
which would
know.
have brought us back into the game. But he's off form recently. I don't know what's happened to him. And yeah, going back to kind of what you said, I think one of Robbie's biggest issues is, you're right, he doesn't really have a plan B, or doesn't really work when he tries to have a plan B. I think the biggest issue for me is that we have this system, this 3-4-3, this 5-3-2, or whatever you want to call it. He doesn't change it if we're missing an important part of that. Janelli's an important part of
Mm.
that forward line. And rather than change it, or rather than bring in like a Cool, who we're yet to really see anything out of. He brings in Humphreys, who is very good, don't get me wrong, but you've mentioned it. His best role is an impact player off the bench.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve to start because he's done well recently. And if you do well recently, you should be starting. But then you can apply that logic to George Grant and say, well, he's been playing well recently. You know,
Yeah.
there's lots of little things, and I'm not gonna criticize Robbie for it because it's not just him. The Motherwell game in context, nobody was at it.
No, I mean, I do get what was it saying as well. So, like, I mean, in that sense, like, I mean, do you think, you know, was it was it like it is hard to kind of pinpoint when, like you said, was it? I do think it's actually quite a good point where, like, when we do, I was a play this was it a system when we're was it really was a match fit, and we've got everybody was it like available, and it works. It can ground teams absolutely,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
do you think it is just maybe like a bit of was it stubbornness and the was it in the way that he wants to play, or again like like I'm trying not to turn this into like a was it like was it in some sort of an attack, but it's either a case of we play was it the 3-4-3 or we revert to the 4-1-2-3-5-6 fucking blah 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 blah, and that's and genuinely, and I'm being like sort of quite honest as well. That's all we've ever seen. Was it him until he came back? Like, was it him during the championship season? So, do you think that he needs to change that? Not was it for the sake of change? No, but like, you know, like you're obviously not going to get the full what was it like effects of it if you've not got your best players in.
yeah, yeah. I agree. We've been saying it for a few weeks now that the predictability
Yeah.
of how we want to play, and don't get me wrong, when it works, it's brilliant.
Mm.
The quick passing, the movement into space. When it works and the link up play works well, it's great.
Mm.
We've seen some really really good goals recently.
Yeah.
As a result of that kind of play. And yeah, so I'm not saying that Robbie Nielsen has to rip things up and go back to school, but I think there's an element of try even just change something, and because our play and our build up is very, as I say, predictable and one dimensional if it doesn't work. Um, Snodgrass has obviously been earning a lot of praise recently and deservedly so. But teams have started saying, okay, well, we're just going to sit somebody on him. And that then presents a different problem for Snodgrass to have to deal with.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's I think a system change could be a good idea. Um, I've not even spoken about Cammy Devlin, but I thought he was absolutely horrendous in the first half. Everything he tried to do just didn't work at all, for whatever reason. But I think, and I mean, this is me kind of putting my fantasy managerial hat on. We saw earlier in the season, when we had defensive injuries, he played Rolls and Sibic as a back two.
Mm.
I can't remember the games, but the pair of them played together and looked good. Um, there's He's played a 4-3-3 before. I seem to recall. I think it was maybe around about that time when it was
Right.
Rolls and Sibic in the defensive pairing. I would fancy going back to that again. Going back to that again, playing the 4-3-3 and having even Snodgrass, Devlin, and George Grant in the midfield, who I think George Grant is actually a very underrated player for us
Yeah.
at the moment. And he's been doing well recently when he's called upon. So I don't see any reason why we shouldn't just say, do you fancy a run in the team? Like, have a go. Gino, the forward three would then obviously present its own problems because
Mm.
Gino as a winger is not anywhere near as good as Gino as a striker, which we've seen recently.
Yeah, true.
Um, but yeah, like having just change something, just put a little bit of spark back in, because the biggest thing from the Motherwell game was the lack of tempo, the lack of forward movement. It was
Oh yeah.
sideways, it was back to front, and I would love to see, and it's I know again another annoying thing for me. I'd love to see a winger, a Barry Mackay or a Cool or an Oda or anybody, one of the wingers that we have, beat a man and put a cross in the box, because again, Barry Mackay was very guilty of it against Motherwell, and he has done it a lot recently, where he gets the ball, he puts his head down and he just runs. And then he runs into somebody, he loses the ball. Or he runs down the wing, doesn't have a pass on, turns around and passes it backwards. And we lose all momentum when you're going forward.
Hmm.
You know, there might not be many Hearts players in the box, but put the ball in there. You know, it could deflect off somebody and go in. We saw it when James Hill had his long throw. It was, deflected in. Mind the goal against Aberdeen.
Hmm.
So, you never know, but just take a few more risks, because I think we're playing quite safe at the moment, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but when it's not working, but then again, that's up to the players as well and the management to say, right, just try something different.
So in that sense, is what you're saying, like, I mean, because like we said, at the start, we have a few weeks off now, where we then have a home tie against St Johnstone. So would that kind of be your sort of hope that we like wanted to take a few more like sort of was it risks in the actual team and from was it Robbie like as well?
I've no idea what his starting lineup will be against St Johnstone. I genuinely no idea what he'll do against St Johnstone. It wouldn't, knowing Robbie, it wouldn't surprise me if he went with the completely same 11 that played against Motherwell, or he completely rips it up and changes everything. Um, but yeah, it'll be really, really interesting to see. But I do think, kind of bringing things back round again to steer away from it being a Robbie out kind of episode, which it's not.
It's honestly not.
It's not. You've seen the
Part
title. It's
three,
not Robbie
hi.
out.
Hi, part three here. Come
We'll
on.
save that for a couple of weeks. No, I think that you have to put a bit of perspective on things, and I think when you look at it, it was our first defeat to a non-Old Firm side since October, which is good.
Yeah, oh, 100%.
Again, like I say, the fact that we've not been playing particularly well kind of goes into the background when you're winning, and that's an element of that. We've had 6 clean sheets in our last 12 games, which again is positive in itself. Our away form is never particularly good. It hasn't been for a long time. But in that run of the last 12 games, we've had 3 away draws and 1 loss. So, could be worse. But like you said earlier, it's momentum, and we just have to make sure that we don't start slowing down a bit, because Hibs, I hate to say it, they
Yeah.
seem to have clicked a little bit. Um, Aberdeen still don't have a manager at time of recording, but they'll get one eventually. So we might see a new manager bounce for Aberdeen as well, like we've seen at Motherwell. But the biggest positive is we're 5 points ahead, and that's still a gap, and considering where we were before the World Cup, we've done amazingly to turn it around and be third.
Mm.
But there can't be complacency. There can't be, put your feet up because we're in third place and let's start talking about the Old Firm. It's that for me is the point that I want to make. It's got to be, this is a blip. This is a disappointing result. But in context of our recent results, it's a one-off, and it has to be. They've got to get back on it against St Johnstone. And I'm kind of annoyed. I don't know about you. I'm kind of annoyed that it's we've got like 2 weeks before we play.
Yeah.
I'm kind of very much more of the school of, if you have a bad result, you play again straight away. Like get out your system and try and get back to winning ways quickly. So having this gap, while it might be good for training, it might be good for Robbie and the coaching staff to kind of drill some things in. You kind of like you're at a bit of a standstill now, and it's like,
Yeah.
right, we have to pick up and go again in 2 weeks.
No, well, I mean, just before we wrap up, Alan. So, like for the game against St, was it Johnson, which as you mentioned, is in a few weeks' time. Obviously will be at home, but nonetheless, was it St Johnson is always a team I fear. Just in one sentence, what do you want to see as a change? Do you think that there will actually be any change, or literally, as you just said there, all of what we've been was it been talking about will be an absolute crock of shite, and you won't change a fucking thing?
But what do I want to see? Energy, tempo, work rate.
So just
It's
everything, yeah.
aye, everything we didn't see against Motherwell. I want to see it against St Johnstone.
We're the best podcast in the land, mate, honestly, stating the fucking obvious, aren't we?
Absolutely, a win would be nice.
I see. There you go, mate. There you go. Well, in that
No,
same, sorry, please.
no, I was just going to say, like I say, I hope that he does make changes. I hope that the players get a rocket put up them and realize that the Motherwell game wasn't good enough, because it wasn't. But yeah, like I say, they need to bounce back, and they need to do it soon.
I think that wraps up a relatively short episode for this week's episode on the Since I Was Young was a podcast for all things Heart of Midlothian. So to all was it of you guys, thank you so much as always for watching. If you haven't subscribed to the Since I Was Young podcast via our YouTube page, please subscribe. One person, and that's all we'll ever ask for. We're literally 300. Come on, please do it. Be a fucking legend. And if you want to get in contact with us, what was it for our socials as well? Please feel free to do so. We have got like a plan for next week's was a podcast as well. Since we're going to be out of action for the next few weeks, so we'll bring you that at some point for next week as well. Who knows? We might do was it like a bit of a Q&A? Was it as we've done in the past as well? So we'll get that through to you guys, and yeah. We do hope you have a lovely week, and we will see you in the next one. So, from myself and Alan, you take care. Bye for now.